Yo my people, welcome back to the channel, and as you can see in the title of today's video, I'll be picking my Premier League team of the season so far. Now of course we are now halfway through the season, so I thought, you know what, let me pick my Premier League team of the season and actually see who makes it if the season was to end today. Now for this video I've kind of gone for a 4-3-3, little cheeky one, just to keep things a little bit simple. So without further ado, we're going to go straight into it, and we are going to start on the goalkeeper position. Now straight away, first name that comes to my mind is Donnarumma. So Donnarumma for Man City. I feel like the reason why it comes to my mind straight away is because, of course, he made the move from PSG to Man City last summer, and there was a lot of criticism, a lot of noise, a lot of doubt about whether or not he was a good fit for the team. Of course, we know historically Pep Guardiola always prefers to have a ball-playing goalkeeper, and let's be honest, Donnarumma is far from that. That's probably the weakest aspect of his game. So it was, the criticism was fair, and it was right for a lot of people to question it, because a lot of people wanted to know how he would actually fit into this team. But I'm not gonna lie to you, he's been a very, very important player for Man City this season. If you actually look at the amount of big moments he's had, the big saves, and statistically as well, if you look at the amount of shots he's faced and the amount of shots he saved, it's ridiculous. And it's actually genius for Man City. It's actually genius for Pep Guardiola, because if you actually look at Man City, they're not the Man City of old. They face a lot more shots, they concede a lot more chances. They needed a shot stopper, essentially. They needed someone that's going to stop the ball from going into the back of the net. And if we're being honest, Donnarumma is probably one of the best in the world at doing that. So it kind of made sense from that point of view. But of course, it was more of a hindsight thing, I would say, because he's been just as important as Haaland, you could say, on the other side of the pitch, for Man City. And he's probably one of the reasons why they're still in the title picture this season. So I feel like he definitely deserves a mention. He could easily get into this team, but there is a couple of other names I do need to discuss first before I kind of decide who I'm going to go with. So the next goalkeeper I'm thinking about is Kelleher. Now, Kelleher's story is a little bit more different. He was, of course, Alice's number 2 at Liverpool for quite some time now. Decided to make the move to Brentford to become a number 1, to, of course, stake his claim as, being a number 1 goalkeeper. And I think he's quickly becoming one of the best goalkeepers in the league. For me, I feel like in terms of shot stopping, in terms of on the ball, he's had some huge moments for Brentford this season, made a couple of penalty saves as well. Yeah, I think he's probably one of the biggest reasons as to why Brentford are currently sitting in 5th. I'm not going to lie to you. I had Brentford going down this season because of the amount of changes they had in the summer. They lost Thomas Frank. They lost, Mbeumo, Wissa, their best players. Their set piece coach is now their main coach. So I just, I thought they were too weak, to be able to stay in the Premier League. And the fact that they're sitting in 5th currently in a European spot, I think a lot of credit has to go to the goalkeeper, as well as, of course, other players that I'm sure we'll discuss in this video. But I feel like a lot of it does have to go down to the goalkeeper, because I think he's kept him in a lot of games. I think he's made some huge saves for them, and he deserves a lot of credit as well. Another goalkeeper I want to mention is David Raya for Arsenal. This one, though, I'm not gonna lie to you, it might sound a bit harsh, it might sound like I'm coming across as a hater, but it is what it is. I just have to be honest. I feel like David Raya, statistically, yes, he is definitely one of the best goalkeepers in the league, of course, with the clean sheets, the defensive record and whatnot. But I don't feel like he's as tested as a Donnarumma, for example, at Man City, or Kelleher at Brentford. I feel like, the defensive record, the clean sheet, is more of a collective thing. I think it's more of a unit. I feel like it shows more how great Arsenal have been as a collective side, how good they've been defensively this season. Yeah, but you still have to give credit to David Raya, because I do also feel like, when David Raya has been called into action, and when he's been called upon, he has delivered as well for Arsenal. So I do feel like he definitely deserves a mention. Of course, that's a goalkeeper that's won back-to-back, Golden Gloves, probably on course to win it this season as well. So he definitely gets a mention. But if I'm being really, really honest, I feel like Donnarumma and Kelleher deserve more of a shout to get into the team, just because of how important they've actually been to their side. So if I had to pick one between Donnarumma and Kelleher, probably gonna lean towards, again, it might come across as a hater, it is what it is, I don't care. I'm probably gonna lean more towards Kelleher, to be honest with you, but just because of the fact that Brentford are sitting in 5th currently, and a lot of it is down to the goalkeeper. I'm not gonna lie to you, I've watched Brentford this season. There's a lot of times where I feel like Kelleher just kept him in the game. He's kept them in the game, and that's probably one of the reasons why they are in the position where they're in right now. So I feel like he definitely deserves to get into the team. Not to take anything with Donnarumma, because he could easily be in there, and if they were to win the title this season, I do feel like a lot of it will come down to Donnarumma. So if that is the case, then come end of the season we can review this, and he probably would make it in there. But as of right now, I am going to give it to Kelleher. Now, moving on to the right back position. Now, there's only 2 names I have in mind, I'm not gonna lie to you. The first one being is Jurrien Timber. Oof, what a player, man. Jurrien Timber, what a player. I feel like he's a player that kind of goes under the radar a little bit. I don't feel like he gets the plaudits he deserves. I think he's a little bit underrated. a little bit underrated. I feel like he's got it all. I think he's all rounded. I think technically on the ball he's amazing. Defensively, I think he's got everything that he needs. Physically, aggression, good going forward. Defensively, he's great as well. Yeah, he can operate at, of course, centre back. He can play in midfield, but I just think he's got everything you'd want in a fullback. And he's been one of Arsenal's most consistent performers for me. And the fact that he's come back from an ACL injury and is performing at the level he's performing at tells you how good he is. And I don't think he's just the best right back in this league. I think he's one of the best right backs in Europe currently. So yeah, for me, Jurriën Timber is the standout performer in that right back position. However, I do want to also give praise to Matty Cash from Aston Villa. I feel like that's a player that over the years has improved a lot. I feel like last season, of course, he wasn't always a starter. There were times where Unai Emery preferred to have, Konsa at right back. So, he didn't always start for Aston Villa. But this season, I think he's been so important to the Aston Villa team, especially the fact that they have McGinn and Rodgers or whoever it is, playing narrowly. They expect a lot of their width coming from their fullback. So with Maatsen and Cash on either side, and I think they've been really, really important to how Aston Villa have played this season. So I think Matty Cash going forward, defensively, he's been really, really excellent for Aston Villa. He's even chipped in with some huge moments, like for example, the goal against Arsenal as well. So for me, he definitely deserves praise, but unfortunately, I have to go with Jurriën Timber at right back. Yeah, so for right back, I definitely have to put Jurriën Timber. I think he deserves it. So now the centre backs. Okay, so I'm going to do this as a pair, of course, but the first centre back I need to mention is Gabriel, another Arsenal boy, which is jarring me, man, because I have to keep praising these Arsenal players and I don't want to praise them. I'll be real honest with you. It hurts to praise them. I feel like I have to give credit where credit's due. Yeah, I have to mention Gabriel. I feel like Gabriel has become one of the best centre-backs in world football. I feel like, from where he was when he joined Arsenal, I felt like, he was still a bit raw. I feel he had that Bozo moment, but I feel like over time he's improved a lot. I feel like on the ball, defensively, he's become a leader in that team. And I feel like now, when he's not in the team, you see the difference. I feel like defensively, you see the difference in Arsenal when he's not there. And he's even chipping in goals on the other end. So not only is he performing amazing defensively, but on the other side of the pitch and the set pieces, he's also scoring goals as well. So yeah, Gabriel is an extremely important player for Arsenal. He's been extremely important for them this season. And if they were to go on to win the league title, I think Gabriel plays a huge, huge part in that. So yeah, for me, Gabriel has to make it into the team. I think that's a no-brainer. He has to make it into the team. The other centre-back, and a lot of people probably think, oh, it's probably going to be Saliba, but I don't think it's Saliba, to be honest with you. As good as Saliba is, I think the player that I have to put in this team is Mark Guehi from Crystal Palace. I feel like Mark Guehi, man, I really, really love Mark Guehi, man. I think he's got everything you'd want in a centre-back. Leadership, physical, on the ball. The fact that he's only 26 is scary, man. I feel like he plays like he's beyond his years. I feel like he plays like a veteran. Every time I see Guehi, I very rarely see him put in bad performances. I'm not going to lie to you, And I think he's part of the reason why, Crystal Palace have been successful over the past year or so. I think he's a big part in that. And it's not surprising for me that he's linked with all the big teams, the Real Madrids, the Barcelonas, the Bayern Munichs, all the big teams in the Premier League. I think he's ready for that big step. And for me, he's on course to being one of the best centre-backs in world football. I know he's playing at Crystal Palace, which is why he probably doesn't get as much praise as he should. But I feel like he's definitely on course to become one of the best centre-backs in world football. I think he's been so consistent. And of course, for England, he's now a starter as well. And I think over time, once he makes that big move as well, which is going to be inevitable, no disrespect to Palace, but I think that move, I think he will show his quality even more. I think he's still got levels to reach. So for me, because of how consistent he's been this season for Crystal Palace, and not just this season, but quite some time now, he definitely deserves to make it into my team. Now, left back. I'm not gonna lie to you, this is probably one of the weakest positions that I've had to look at or had to think about, to be honest with you, because I don't feel like there's real standouts in that position, but there are a couple of names I do need to discuss. I think the first being Cucurella from Chelsea. Now, there might be a lot of people that might start scratching their heads and thinking, what, Cucurella? But take away the recent red card and a couple bozo moments that he's had this season, I feel like over the course of the season, even stretching it back to last season, but specifically more so focused on this season, I think he's been one of Chelsea's best performers, man. I think he's been one of the best left backs in the league, one of the best left backs in Europe, and has been for quite some time now. It's of course, I don't know if it's the aesthetics, I don't know if it's the fact that I don't know, he just seems to be disliked. I don't know what it is about him that people seem to dislike, but if you actually look at his performance, he's been very, very good for Chelsea, and I feel like he definitely deserves a mention. Another left back is Nico O'Reilly for Man City as well. I think Nico O'Reilly is a special case because I think given the fact that he's not a left back, he's not a natural left back, but has been made to play there, given the fact that he's still a young boy, the fact that, you know, he's come into a high pressure environment and had to almost deliver based on the, you know, the defensive absences and the injuries to Man City, and he's delivered. I think he's been one of their, you know, shining stars this season for Man City, and I think he definitely deserves a mention. And if he continues performing the way he's performing, there's no reason why he can't make it to the England team. So for me, it's definitely between Cucurella and Nico O'Reilly. It's tough, man, because a part of me wants to give it to Nico O'Reilly just because of, you know, how great he's been and how young he's been and the fact that he's not a natural left back. But I am going to sway it to Cucurella just because I feel like Cucurella has been consistent for quite some time now. And, you know, going into this season, I think he's been good as well. So I definitely feel like he deserves to be in the team. So now moving into the midfield, which is probably my most favourite department. I can't start this without starting with one man. I feel like that deserves to be there, undisputed. I don't think there's a discussion to be had, which is Mr. Declan Rice. I think Declan Rice, for me, is not just one of the best players in the league, but it's one of the best players in the world, especially in his position. And I feel like he gets the Mo Salah treatment. I feel like he's a little bit underappreciated. I feel people, you know, are too obsessed with the aesthetics. You know, I know he's not as silky as a Vitinha, for example, or as silky as a Pedri. But when we talk about efficiency, when we talk about consistency, when we talk about reliability, he always delivers for Arsenal, and he's forever getting better and better. You know, since you can stretch it back to his West Ham days to now, to this season, you know, he's been one of the most consistent performers, especially for the Arsenal team and this season as well. And, you know, comes up with big moments like he did against Bournemouth, 2 goals. And yeah, I think Declan Rice, yeah, is slowly becoming one of the best in his position. And if not, already is one of the best in his position. You know, there was that debate about Caicedo and Rice, but for me, I'm not gonna lie to you, I edge it to Declan Rice. You know, I think when we talk about big games, when we talk about reliability, you know, when we talk about consistency, I don't think there's a better midfield in the league right now than Declan Rice. So for me, Declan Rice has to get in there. I don't think there's any debate there. Now, the next midfielder I feel like I have to mention is Granit Xhaka of Sunderland. Now, Granit is a special case as well because I feel like no one really expected this move in the summer. It kind of took people by surprise. The fact that, you know, he left Bayer Leverkusen, which was a team that was competing in the Champions League, a team that, you know, not too long ago won a league title, you know, a team that was, you know, had that historical season that, you know, almost going on to win a treble, you know, almost going invincible. Might have gone invincible, I can't remember, but, you know, they had that historic season. And for the fact that he's come to a newly promoted side in Sunderland, you know, and was brought in to be, you know, the guy that leads this team to, you know, to stay in the Premier League, he's over-delivered, man. And when you talk about leadership, when you talk about performances, I feel like he's rubbed on. That's rubbed on. His experience, everything about him has rubbed onto the other players. It's rubbed onto the fans. The fans already love him. The club love him so much. He loves the club. And I feel like it was a match made in heaven. I don't know where it came from. I feel like it was a love story that we never needed, but we now have, if that makes sense. So, yeah, I think Xhaka, you know, he's been one of the biggest reasons as to why Sunderland are where they are this season. They're sitting comfortably in mid-table right now. They should stay in the Premier League. There's no reason why they won't stay in the Premier League unless they have a completely horrible disaster second half of the season. I don't see that ever happening. And yeah, I just think they look like a Premier League team. You know, they look like a Premier League team, and I think Xhaka's been one of the biggest reasons for that. So I definitely have to put Xhaka there. The next midfield I'm going to put in is Morgan Rogers. Now, Morgan Rogers, yeah, what a player, man. Special talent. Still very young, but if you look at his performances at Aston Villa this season, I look back at the 2 goals he scored against Man United, and it just, you know, it's just a snapshot of what he is capable of, you know, and what he can become, because he's still very young. He's still got a lot of levels to reach. I still think he's got a very high ceiling, but already this season, I feel like he's been one of the standout performers very easily, and he's probably one of the biggest reasons as to why Aston Villa are in the title picture right now. I think Rodgers, especially during that win streak, you know, was one of their better players, one of their most important players, delivered some huge moments for them. And yeah, I think he's easily becoming Aston Villa's best player or most important player on the pitch. And I wouldn't be surprised, you know, in the near future that he gets linked to all the big teams, because he's a real special talent. And yeah, I feel like the season he's having currently, he has to make it into my team. Now we're going to move to the forward line. This one's going to be a little bit interesting. I'm going to start with right wing. The first name I'm going to mention is someone that I feel like a lot of people might put him in, which is Bukayo Saka. Now, Bukayo, I feel like this season hasn't been having one of his better seasons, statistically at least. I feel like performance-wise, I feel like he's still performing at a very high level. I know that people expect, you know, him to score goals and, you know, put up numbers because of the fact that he's probably the Arsenal star boy, probably their, you know, their best player, you know, the poster boy of the club as well. You would expect him, you know, to have good numbers, but I just think that's just because of the level of the Arsenal team. I just think there's so much talented players that he's now sharing that responsibility with a lot of them. I don't think he carries that burden anymore in terms of having to deliver every single time, you know. So now I feel like that might have had an impact. I'm not saying that it definitely had an impact, but it might have had an impact on his numbers. But in terms of actual performance, when I watch Bukayo Saka for Arsenal, he's always a threat. You know, whether it's crossing the ball, whether it's taking on his man, whatever it is, he's always a threat. And I feel like he is still, you know, one of the best players in the league. You know, when you look at what he provides for Arsenal, you know, he's easily one of the best players. But we have to be honest, he isn't having one of his best seasons, which is fair. You know, he's been performing for Arsenal for quite a number of years. He's been one of the most consistent players in the league for quite some time now. So it's normal, you know, for him to have a bit of a drop off in terms of numbers or whatever it is. But he's still, you know, still performing at a high level. So, you know, I don't want people to think that, you know, there's a lot of people that think just because he's not putting up the numbers that he's not having a great season. But if you actually look at his performance, I still feel like, you know, he is performing well. I still feel like he is doing what he needs to do, you know, for the team. So, however, he doesn't make it into my team. I feel the person that has to make it in that right wing spot for me is Harry Wilson. I think Harry Wilson this season, I don't know what dietary he's on. I don't know what he's done over the summer. I don't know what training program he's on, but he's absolutely exploded at Fulham. He needs to let us know. He needs to come out and tell us what he's done, because he's transformed into this animal. Every time I watch Fulham, he's either scoring a goal, creating a goal. He's making noise. He's doing something. I'm not gonna lie, he's a constant threat. And this season, I feel like he's exploded. He's become Fulham's main man, and I feel like he's thriving. And I feel like because of the way he's performing, I think it would be wrong for me to not, you know, put him in this team. I think the season he's having, I think he deserves to make it into my team. I'm not gonna lie to you. So yeah, for now, I'm gonna put Harry Wilson there because I think he definitely deserves to make it into my Premier League team this season right now. On the opposite side, I don't think this one's a debate, man. I think this one's it's a clear winner here, and there's only one standout performer that should make it into that left wing position, and that is Antoine Semenyo. Now, Antoine Semenyo, what's more to be said, man? His creativity, the goals, the take-ons, you know, he's been absolutely on fire this season, and he's definitely been one of the best players in the league this season. And of course, we know that he's just made the move to Man City, and rightly so, and deservedly so. I think if you look at his performances, you know, it only made sense that that was the next step for him. You know, he's been performing for Bournemouth for quite some time. This season, he's gone to a whole nother level, and yeah, that's a top player right there. And it'll be interesting to see how he can transfer that to Man City now, given that they are, of course, on trying to you know, win the title. If he can now, you know, be the game changer or be the difference to, you know, Man City winning that title, then who's to say that he can't even win a PFA Player of the Year award? You know, if he makes that impact and he's the driving force behind City winning the league this season, then yeah, there's definitely a big shout there. But for me, he has to make it. I think that's undisputed. I think, yeah, he's definitely been one of the best performers. Third top scorer in the league, so he has to make it into my team. And now the final position is the striker position. Now this one, I don't think there's much conversation to be had here. There's only one man. It's getting boring, but it has to be Erling Haaland, because let's be honest, man, what's more to be said? What have we not said about this man? You know, he's some of the things he's done is unprecedented. You know, the goal scoring rate this season, he went on that crazy, you know, goal scoring streak, you know, scoring in like 14 games, you know, hit the 100 goal mark as well, 100 goals in like 108 games. So he's doing things that we've never seen before in this league. Let's be honest, he's doing some unprecedented things, you know, that this league has never seen. And for me, he's already probably the greatest striker to ever grace this league. I'm not gonna lie to you. When we talk about goal scoring, there's no one that comes close to Erling Haaland, I'll be honest with you. And he's shown it again this season. I know as of recent, he has kind of quieted down a little bit. He has had a slight dip in form, but we can't take away what he's already done this season. And for me, just because of that, he has to make it into this team. I do want to also give, you know, honorable mentions to other strikers. For example, I have to mention Igor Thiago. His story is crazy. I mean, he's come into the league his first season and he's already the highest scoring Brazilian ever in the Premier League. You know, coming to a Brentford side that lost Wissa and Embremo, lost their Thomas Frank. And the pressure, the expectation for him to fill that void, you know, to fill that gap. And I would say he's over-delivered, to be honest with you. I think Igor Thiago's over-delivered. Some people might argue he scored a lot of penalties, but ultimately he still has to score. For me, penalties or no penalties, he still has to deliver, and he's done that for his team. And so I do feel like he definitely deserves an honourable mention. And given the fact that Brentford are sitting in fifth, like, that's crazy to me. Like, I had them, you know, being relegated, and the fact that they're sitting in fifth right now, ahead of the likes of Manchester United, Chelsea, and whatever, is crazy. And another striker I feel like I need to mention also is Ekitike for Liverpool. I feel like, you know, his story is also interesting, given the fact that he joined in the summer for big money, And then Isak also joined for big money. He was meant to be the number one. So he was actually signed to be a number two, essentially, to Isak. But he's come in, you know, with this ego. And I mean ego in a good sense, you know, confidence. And, you know, he's been the better signing. Let's be real. He's probably been Liverpool's best signing this season. And some of the goals he scored for Liverpool is, yeah, I think he's definitely delivered, you know. When you look at the signings Liverpool has made, he's probably the only one where you could say has definitely delivered. So I do feel like he definitely deserves a mention. But of course, we have to go with Erling Haaland. So this is my team. This is my Premier League team of the season. I'm going to go through it once more. So starting in goal is Kelleher. Right back is Timber. My centre backs are Gabriel and Guehi. Left back Cucurella. Midfield, I'm going with Rice, Xhaka and Rodgers. And then my attack will be Wilson, Haaland and Semenyo. So that is my Premier League team of the season so far. Let me know in the comments if you agree, if you disagree with any of them. I'm sure a lot of people will disagree, but make sure to also share your Premier League team of the season so far. So let me know what your team would be or what it would look like. And please make sure to also like, share, and subscribe as well, my people. Make sure to hit that. And until next time, peace.